Conley by Liam McGovern. The man was all shot through that came today into the barrack square. A soldier I am not proud to say. We killed him there. They brought him from the prison hospital to see him in that chair. I thought his smile would far more quickly call a man to prayer. Maybe we cannot understand this thing that makes these rebels die. And yet, all things love freedom, and the spring clear in the sky. I think I would not do this deed again for all that I hold by. Gaze down my rifle at his breast. But then, a soldier I. They say that he was kindly, different to, apart from the rest, a lover of the poor, and all shot through, his wounds ill-dressed. He came before us, faced us like a man. He knew a deeper pain than blows or bullets. Ere the world began, died he in vain? Ready? Present. And he just smiling. God, I felt my rifle shake. His wounds were opened out, and round that chair was one red lake. I swear, his lips said fire when all was still, before my rifle spat that cursed lead, and I was picked to kill a man like that.
The Listeners, by Walter Delamere. Is there anybody there? Said the traveller, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse in the silence chomped the grasses of the forest ferny floor. And a bird flew up out of the turret, above the traveller's head, and he smote upon the door again a second time. Is there anybody there? He said. But no one descended to the traveller. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood, perplexed and still. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men. Stood thronging the faint moonbeams of the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. And he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness answering his cry, while his horse moved, cropping the dark turf neath the starred and leafy sky. For he suddenly smote on the door, even louder, and lifted his head. Tell them I came, and no one answered, that I kept my word, he said. Never the least stir made the listeners, though every word he spake fell echoing through the shadowiness of the still house from the one man left awake. Aye, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoofs were gone.
Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome raths outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the jub-jub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand. Long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock, with eyes of flame, came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through, the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he came galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. O frabjous day, Callooh, Calais, he chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rots outgrabe.
To Autumn by John Keats. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run, to bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shell with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, till they think warm days will never cease, for summer hath o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by a winnowing wind, or on a half-reaped furrow, sound asleep, drowsed by the fume of poppies, while thy hook spares the next swath and all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by cider press, with patient look, thou watchest the last oozings hour by hour. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too. When barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with a rosy hue, then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as the soft wind lives or dies. And full-grown lambs bleat from hilly bourne, hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies.
The Tiger by William Blake. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when the heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain, in what furnace was thy brain? And what the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? And when stars threw down their spears, and watered heaven with their tears, Did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry?
Sailing to Byzantium by W.B. Yeats. That is no country for old men. The young in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations at their psalm. The salmon falls, the mackerel crowded seas, fish, flesh, or fowl commend all summer long. Whatever is begotten, born, and dies, caught in that sensual music, all neglect monuments of unaging intellect. An aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick. Unless soul clap its hands and sing, and louder sing for every tatter in his mortal dress, nor is there singing school, but studying monuments of its own magnificence. And therefore I have sailed the seas and come to the holy city of Byzantium. O sages standing in God's holy fire, as in the gold mosaic of a wall, come from the fire, burn in a gyre, and be the singing masters of my soul. Consume my heart away, sick with desire and fastened to a dying animal. It knows not what it is, and gather me into the artifice of eternity. Once out of nature, I shall never take my bodily form from any natural thing, but such a form as Grecian goldsmiths make, of hammered gold and gold enamelling, to keep a drowsy emperor awake, or set upon a golden bough to sing to lords and ladies of Byzantium, of what is past, or passing, or to come.
The Destruction of Sennacherib by Lord Byron. The Assyrian came down like the wolf on the fold, and his cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold, and the sheen of their spears was like stars on the sea, when the blue wave rolls nightly on deep Galilee. Like the leaves of the forest when summer is green, that host with their banners at sunset were seen. Like the leaves of the forest when autumn hath blown, that host on the morrow lay withered and strown. For the angel of death spread his wings on the blast, and breathed in the face of the foe as he passed. And the eyes of the sleepers waxed deadly and chill, and their hearts but once heaved, and forever grew still. And there lay the steed with his nostril all wide, but through it there rolled not the breath of his pride, and the foam of his gasping lay white on the turf, and cold as the spray of the rock-beating surf. And there lay the rider, distorted and pale, with the dew on his brow and the rust on his mail. And the tents were all silent, the banners alone, the lances unlifted, the trumpet unblown. And the widows of Asher are loud in their wail, and the idols are broke in the temple of Baal, and the might of the Gentile, unsmote by the sword, hath melted like snow in the glance of the Lord.
Bullfight by Miroslav Holub. Someone runs about. Someone scents the wind. Someone stomps the ground, but it's hard. Red flags flutter, and on his upholstered jade, the picador with infirm lance scores the first wound. Red blood spurts between the shoulder blades. Chest about to split, tongue stuck out to the roots, hooves stamp of their own accord. 3 pairs of the bandoleros in the back, and a matador is drawing his sword over the railing. And then someone, blood spattered, all in, stops and shouts, "Let's go! Quit it! Let's go! Quit it! Let's go over across the river and into the trees! Let's go across the river and into the trees! Let's leave the red rags behind! Let's go some other place!" Thus he shouts, or wheezes, or whispers. And the barriers roar, and no one understands, because everyone feels the same about it. The black and red bull is going to fall and be dragged away, and be dragged away, and be dragged away, without grasping the way of the world, without having grasped the way of the world, before he has grasped the way of the world.
Dulce et decorum est, by Wilfred Owen. Bent double, like old beggars under sacks. Knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep. Many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of tired, outstripped 5-9s that dropped behind. Gas, gas, quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fitting the clumsy helmets just in time. Someone was still yelling out and stumbling and floundering like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea, I saw him, drowning. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dreams you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face, like a devil's, sick of sin. If you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from his froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues. My friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie. Dulce et decorum est, pro patria more.
Timothy Winters, by Charles Cosley. Timothy Winters comes to school with eyes as wide as a football pool, ears like bombs, and teeth like splinters. A blitz of a boy is Timothy Winters. His belly is white, his neck is dark, and his hair is an exclamation mark. His clothes are enough to scare a crow, and through his breeches the blue winds blow. When teacher talks, he won't hear a word, and he shoots down dead the arithmetic bird. He licks the patterns off his plate, and he's not even heard of the welfare state Timothy Winters has bloody feet. And he lives in a house on Suez Street. He sleeps in a sack on the kitchen floor. And they say there aren't boys like him anymore. Old man Winters likes his beer. And his missus ran off with a bombardier. Grandma sits in the grate with a gin. And Timothy's dosed with an aspirin. The welfare worker lies awake. But the law's as tricky as a 10-foot snake. So Timothy Winters drinks his cup and slowly goes on growing up. At morning prayers, the headmaster helves for children less fortunate than ourselves. And the loudest response in the room is when Timothy Winters roars, "Amen!" So come on, angel, come on, 10. Timothy Winters says, Amen. 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 Timothy Winters. Lord, Amen.